loud with it, then I'm taking it off because my dome is already starting to sweat. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all the killers and $100 billers, it's the Driveline Academy podcast, the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I'm your host, Deven Morgan, Direct Youth Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and I'm joined as per usual by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, Driveline Academy International Man of Mystery, Jeremy Tecktiel.
Impressive. That was really fast today.
That might be the fastest we've ever done. I kind of abbreviated the beginning.
I feel like I'm lacking my coach credentials. I should have been sitting here with a stopwatch.
Well, I mean, we should just be wearing stopwatches all the time. Yeah. We are youth baseball coaches. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. If you're not joining us on an audio-visual platform, just visualize me wearing basically every stitch of Dodger clothing that I own.
And the sweatshirt looks new.
Other than my Driveline socks.
The Driveline socks. The sweatshirt looks new.
It's not. Okay. I coached probably 75% of every youth baseball game that I ever coached in this sweatshirt.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was always that guy.
What kind of laundry detergent you use? That's really impressive.
I don't know, honey. It's
really shining. Like the white on the Dodgers is really shining.
Well, Nike makes a good sweatshirt sometimes.
Apparently, yeah.
I actually bought another Dodger sweatshirt after this one.
I'm not wearing Nike.
That definitely didn't hold up as well as this one. So we got to talk about the Dodgers. We're going to talk about our first truly homegrown 90-mile-an-hour arm within the academy. But first, housekeeping. First thing, as per usual, axbat.com, code DL20 is in Dodgers Los Angeles. Will get you 20% off at axbat.com. You like to hit things? Do you like to hit things with bats? They have those at axbat.com, so you should go buy them. Use code DL20, get yourself 20% off. What else do we have for housekeeping? Typical things that I try to tell you that you should buy because they're just good and good for you. Things like the Youth Underload Smash bat, $79. Youth Power bat, $99. It's just better than anything that you're going to find in the training aisle of your favorite large sporting goods retailer. It's going to come with a program that's going to tell you what drills to do, what environments to do them in, how to get after it, how to get better. Pretty cool. It's pretty good stuff. Skills Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual. We are pretty close to 1,000 copies in the first year, which is spooky. So if you want to get on that train, if you want to be one of the 1,000, you might even be the 1,000th person. You could go to drivelinebaseball.com. Skills Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual. It's a big old book. And it's all the online resources as well. Drill videos, our yearly training plan, our micro schedules, our macro schedules, all of our throwing development stuff, all of our hitting development stuff, all of our long-term athletic development library. It's everything that I could try to put in one place to help you do better for youth baseball.
And if you buy the 1,000th one, he'll sign it.
I for sure will.
Yeah.
I for sure will. And I might have to sign like 10 or 20. And know that, like, as a person riddled with anxiety issues, it makes me really weirded out to do that. But if that's a thing that's important to you, I'll do it. And then the only other thing for housekeeping is, again, I want to pump Ryan Freeman is a longtime Academy podcast. He's part of the Academy podcast family, as are you, now that you're listening to us. Ryan has a business where he does sales and marketing, website development support for a lot of small businesses, large businesses, etc. And he set something up for us for Academy. So if you go to Strider4, as in the number 4DL.com, you can take a look at what Ryan's doing for you about, hey, if you've got a business out there that doesn't have a social media presence, doesn't have a website presence, or if you have an existing one and it needs to freshen up, talk to our guy Ryan. He's going to give you a discount because you're part of the squad. We get a little bit of a kickback back there, the same way we do with the Axbat thing. And the intention there is not to help Jeremy fund the next European adventure or for me to fund my next really stupid motorcycle or car purchase. It goes directly into a scholarship fund that helps us allow our Academy families to do this thing for less money or no money. And I'm going to make a specific appeal to you. Hey, we're coming into the holiday season. You might have a website that you need to help development with. You might need to buy some bats for a kid that you know. We had some stuff happen to one of our Academy families last week. And it just so happens to be a kid who probably wouldn't be here if we weren't able to provide that type of support. I'm really looking forward to someday telling like the longitudinal story of the impact that we've been able to make on these kids because we didn't put a check before opening up the door for them to do this thing. So the benefit of you being able to participate in this thing with us to provide that type of scholarship support, and again, to get something out of it, whether that's a bat, whether it's a new website, I hope it's a Michael Scott, it's a win-win-win-win or whatever.
Win-win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win. So yeah, Strider, the number 4DL.com is the way to do that on the website side. Axbat.com, code DL20, Dodgers Los Angeles, will get you that 20% off.
And I'm going to throw one more item in here. You did just mention it. The GoFundMe is still up on your X account,
Yes.
your Twitter account.
Yes.
If you've already given, thank you.
Yep.
Means a ton. If you haven't, they can always use the help. So you can go to Deven's profile and find the GoFundMe.
Yeah. The support that we've gotten out there, not from the people on social media that are just like the bot accounts that are like, hey, you have a GoFundMe, and like, the real people out there, some of whom that I saw some of the names, man, it's some of the men and women that I know are listeners to us, and you've communicated with us. I don't want to start us off on a down note, but I'm just going to be real with you that the tough thing about life is that like this type of tragedy sometimes just like shows up on your doorstep. And, for those of us that are still here, the only thing that I think that you can do is there's no time machine. You can't take it back. It is what it is. And all we can do is just try to love the hell out of these kids, and support them as they go through the entirety of this process of working through these type of events and in so much as they can, trying to put their lives back together. And I think, I know that you and I feel really strongly about our capacity to be able to do some type of good for these type of kids. Some of their situations aren't as extreme as this one that we just referenced, where the GoFundMe is on my social, but some of them are. And I don't know, man. In so much as it matters to me that like when I put my head on my pillow at night, that I feel like I did a good thing in the universe. If I could take back that tragedy from that kid, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I can't. But what I can do is make sure that he has a place to be a kid, to continue to develop in this game, and be supported in a culture of people that really care just about as much about him, more about him as a human being than we do as a baseball player.
It's about it's about more than baseball, and it was really clear last week, and it was awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean,
the support,
the support,
community that came out around him.
Yep, support that came from our academy family, support that came from people at Driveline. I think you said it, that like felt really proud.
Yeah.
And again, that's basically the best that we can do.
Yeah.
Whoo, boy. All right. I'm taking the hat off because otherwise I'm going to start pouring out sweat. I don't know if you know this, but the Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series.
Can we talk about the fifth inning?
So for anybody
thank you to the New York Yankees for maybe retiring my segment.
Oh, boy. For anybody that doesn't know, and you might be joining us for the first time, we typically do a segment that Jeremy takes the lead on, where we talk about errors that get made at the professional level. And generally the resounding message is like, hey, don't be a dick when kids make mistakes on a baseball field, because grown adults that are at the literal top of the mountaintop for their skill and ability, sometimes they make mistakes too. Mm-hmm. And boy, did the Yankees prove that maxim true in the fifth inning of that game. Goodness gracious. That was pretty wild. And it started with like the most innocuous thing, which was like wasn't a pop fly, but it was really a liner. It was kind of a tweener that got dropped by Judge in center field. Yeah,
but this is the nice part about the great cameras that we got in MLB broadcast. You could literally see his eyes looking at the runner.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, the number one thing that you tell an outfielder, an infielder, whatever, like, catch it and then don't start to throw it before you have it.
Yeah, you
make the next play before it's secure, and his eyes were on the runner, and take him off the baseball, and that's what happens.
Yeah, you got to put the first thing first, and he put the first thing second.
Yeah,
and that ball got dropped. And when the Dodgers won in 20, I I didn't watch a single one of those games in full, like not one. And part of that was because we had just started Academy. It was that first October. Things were crazy. I felt very disconnected from that experience, like just because as a fan, as a lifelong Dodger fan, that was one of those seasons that I probably watched the least. And like I just had, there was a lot going on. It was COVID. We had just started this thing. So it was weird. You know, it was like I was in the gym when they won it. And I kind of just like watched by the TV, saw the final out, and I was like, okay. And it was a weird era for the Dodgers because a lot of my favorites had been scrubbed off of that team, and they kind of got better, but I kind of resented it. Like the Puig.
I was going to say, we could just say Puig.
You know, the Puig to Josh Reddick to, I can't remember who was a right fielder for that 20 team. You know, that sucked. That sucked for me because, you know, it wasn't that Puig is my favorite player of all time. He's definitely up there, but he's definitely my kid's favorite player of all time, and he probably always will be because the joy that he played the game with, I think, was really impactful for them about connecting to baseball. Just period. You know, I mean, well, let me pull it up. I mean, I guess I have a supercomputer in my lap, so. You know, that first year when he came up, I mean, we watched that game. I watched that game live. You know, like I knew who Puig was when they signed him. You know, wanted to see like him debut with the Dodgers, and when he came up in 13, Danny was like 4. He's like 5 years old, 4 or 5, and you see somebody, and he was already that kid who like. He could barely stand, and he was just like swinging a bat everywhere and throwing a bat everywhere, and it was just like his thing that he wanted to do. And when you're that young and you'll sit down and kind of like watch a game, and you'll watch like a guy because he just plays like a kid, they connected to that. Yeah. And, you know, around that same time, for anybody that doesn't understand my Dodger fandom as a lifelong Seattleite, I will give you the 30-second explanation. My grandpa was a New York guy. Worked in the Brooklyn shipyards like right after he had joined the Navy, and then went down to Virginia and mine sweeps, and then lieutenant commander during World War II, whatever. But in so much as he had a team, it was the Dodgers. It was not the Yankees. And I, you know, was raised in part with my mother and my grandparents. So like I grew up, and it was just like, okay, well, that's just the association, right? And again, prior to interleague play, I didn't have to pick. Right? It wasn't one of those things. It was just like I got older, and you know the Dodgers are my NL team, and the Mariners are my AL team, and never the two shall meet, other than in the World Series. And like,
Mariners aren't getting there. So.
It ain't happening anytime soon. So I didn't have to make that choice. And you know, and it just kind of stayed with me through middle school and high school and into college. And, you know, look, I mean, my best friends know that like when Barry Bonds was in the middle of having probably the most impressive hitting season ever, my best friends know that like I talked trash about Bonds incessantly. I could not get behind it because that's a giant. Yeah. I can't do it.
Sure.
So then we have kids. I meet the love of my life in a bar. We make people. And you kind of have this choice where it's like, well, what type of baseball am I going to raise them around? By that time, Dave Niehaus had passed away. Vin Scully is getting older, and it's a really simple question, right? Do I want to raise them and have an opportunity to still experience arguably one of the greatest broadcasters of all time, but also to watch better baseball than what, you know, Trader Jackie Z and you know, and what was going on with the Mariners at the time. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. So my kids have grown up as Dodger fans unilaterally, and like we will go to Mariner games because it's the closest Major League Baseball that we have. But like, you know, and again, we've done the facility, we've done the stadium tours, we've gone down to LA, we've done that whole thing. There's the explanation.
He still wears the Puig shirt routinely.
Yes.
And he has an affinity for wearing shirts that are too small on him, so it's never going to go away. No. The Puig shirt is just going to be in rotation in perpetuity.
No, you know, because he, you know, at like 155, 160 pounds, he feels like if he puts on a tiny shirt, he's like kind of he's
jacked. Yeah. That's like, his tiny shirt is his thing.
It's so annoying.
So like the Puig, the bigger he gets, the smaller that shirt gets, the more he's going to wear it.
Yeah. Well, and now, because over the years, because, we don't get down to LA every single season, I've been that guy where it's like I'm plugged in enough to know what the stadium promotions are. So I will, I'll go on to eBay the day after and I will buy like the stadium exclusive bobbleheads and the T-shirts or whatever. So like, the Cuba shirt that he has now was mine, and now he's kind of big enough to start wearing. So I've handed some stuff down to try to keep it alive. But this year, getting a chance to watch that game at home with my wife and kids,
and only the end,
yeah,
because we had practice for the beginning, right?
Because we were here, and game was up on some of the TVs in the facility, not the ones in the strength room, because we can't do that because then the kids don't pay attention to anything.
Well, it was up on. Your son was not pleased because the main TV wasn't turning on.
Yeah.
So I put it up on the secondary TV, but he couldn't see it from where he was lifting. So it was basically like I didn't have it on.
Yeah. So we got in the car, turned the game on, and I think we were already down.
It was 6-5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was things weren't looking good.
Yeah.
But then that fifth inning.
Oh no! When we were the fifth inning happened while they were still here. Did he leave early?
It did happen. I was talking to my man, Jerry Butler,
okay,
longtime podcast listener. We were talking about high school baseball, and we were having this really deep conversation about stuff. And I had the game day score up, and I'm like, I'm listening to Jerry because we're having a talk, and I'm being, but I've also got, and I was just like, oh crap, stuff's happening.
Yeah,
stuff's happening.
Because there was the biggest TV that the kids were watching was by the pitching cage.
Yeah.
And I heard this like loud sound, and then walked over, and it was Judge dropping the fly ball.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, well, that might turn some things around.
Yeah.
And then they all ran over to me like 10 minutes later, like, it's tied now. And I was like, wow, that escalated really fast.
Yeah, it was wild. So we hopped in the car, had the YouTube TV up in a holder. I'm driving safely. I'm not, but so that Dee and Christian could watch the game, and then got home. We were able to watch the end, and that was a real bad inning. I mean, I think John Boy said worst inning in World Series history, and I think you could. Oh,
I honestly don't know that it's even close.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a comparable.
That was tough, and some of that stuff was unforced. The drop ball in center field, the Cole Rizzo miscommunication about Mookie's grounder, that was El Tufocino.
Mm-hmm. Even the Volpe to Jazz, that wasn't forced.
Yeah, I mean that's the one into third, right?
Yeah.
I think it might have been Jerry Weinstein. Shout out to the OG Jerry Weinstein. Was giving Kike some credit for making that throwing lane really, really small for the way that he came into the bag.
Sure.
Which is one of those like, look, I appreciate that point, and if I'm a college or a pro coach or even a high school coach, I could see that and then talking to kids about it. I don't know that I want to have that conversation with anybody that's like 14 or younger. About the way that he approached that bag and how he shortened up the lane. Like, let's just get to the bag, please.
Correct.
Let's just get to the bag.
Correct.
But it was a weird combination of like unforced errors and then errors that were forced, in part by like the Kike thing coming into third, and just you could just feel the wheels coming off.
And you could feel the tension.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, and again, as a partial Seattle Mariner fan, hard for me to not feel great about the Yankees just like El Chocosino in the grandest stage. And look, they were down 3-1, right? Like it probably doesn't if they sure. And again, anybody that's a longtime Dodger fan will tell you, specifically over the Dave Roberts tenure and even the front part of
it's been a little bit of Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I mean the front part of the Mattingly, man, it's just like you go all the way back to Mattingly's decision to start a very, very, very cooked Andre Ethier, if I remember correctly, in right field instead of Puig in one of those playoff series. You talk about Hanley Ramirez getting plunked and breaking a rib in the first game against the Red Sox in was that 15, I think? Like, there's any number. I mean, geez, the 2014 series against the Cardinals where Kershaw got lit up by Matt Stairs and I don't know. I mean, there's been some heartbreaking, terrible losses. And to see it flip the other way was again like very, very nice. It's nice to see the worm turn every once in a while. And and I've also heard some stuff from like kids in our organization giving my son a little bit of crap that like, oh, it's great, it's easy to be a Dodger fan because you guys they spend a ton of money and sure. And they win. Sometimes it's like, yeah, they win, but like a lot of those wins since 2013, since the post Frank McCourt era, have led to terribly gut punching losses.
No question. But someone who how do I put this lightly, roots for the Mariners doesn't need, like, they would kill for a heartbreaking loss.
100%. And
well, I guess that's not true. They've had was that 2 years ago or last year? The series in Houston.
Yeah, 2 years ago
when he put Robbie Ray in.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, they still remember that one. But it's.
Yeah, and I've seen somebody on social was kind of talking about like. Defending, the Guggenheim Group's ownership of the Dodgers and the fact that they have aggressively spent money, kind of making the point that like basically any of the billionaire owners of pick an MLB club could spend that way.
Right, you're just jealous.
Yeah,
right.
You're just unhappy because your team doesn't want to financially commit to winning, and that's unfortunately like what appears to be the case about the way that some franchises are run, is that they'll spend enough money to be competitive, but they won't pass that threshold to increase competitiveness.
Yeah.
And if that's the stance that you have, and then you're a fan of that team, and then that team doesn't get to where you want them to get, who's there to blame?
Correct. Now, having said all that, they were down 2-1 to San Diego.
Yes, they were.
They were down 5-0 in the game that they won, which was the largest comeback in World Series history.
Yes.
Immediately after the game, they're celebrating on the field. The first person that gets interviewed, at least on Fox or whatever I was watching, was Mookie.
Yes.
They're asking him about resilience of the team and whatever. And he doesn't talk about the fact that they have 3 MVPs.
Yeah.
The only thing he talks about is how much love is in that dugout.
Yes. Yep.
In that clubhouse. Success leaves clues at every level.
Dude, I was listening because I heard that same thing, and I was thinking about the podcast we did last week talking about exactly that same thing.
Yep.
Like, how much love are you willing to put into this thing to get to the place you want to get to?
Yep. And then they interviewed Trinan, and he basically said the exact same thing.
Yep.
Was that, like, we just got guys who are sticking up for each other in here
Yeah.
and, like, picking each other up when we're down.
Yep.
And, that's, like, at the end of the day, the Dodgers didn't win because, I mean, it helped that they had 3 MVPs, and especially one of those MVPs played with one freaking arm.
Yeah.
And the other one, I guess you can probably say picked up his slack reasonably well.
A little bit.
One of the other ones. But, like, that helps. But that isn't why they won it.
Right.
They won it because that was like a really cohesive team, and they were all pulling for each other.
Yeah. God bless Tommy Edman. God bless Kike Hernandez. Honey, that's your guy. Kike's my wife's guy. Yeah.
Kike is one of my favorites because he's the one that, like, I feel like he plays a role every October.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether it's with the Dodgers or he did
Yep.
it with the Red Sox, I
Yep.
feel like. And, like, every October there's a casual baseball fan that watches it, and there's like, this guy's name is Kike?
Yeah.
Like, it's why he's one of my favorites.
And they'll say it the wrong way.
And they'll say it the wrong way, and it's like, how does he get away with this? It's like, because he doesn't go by that as his name? Yeah.
No. Yeah. Weirdly enough, he doesn't go by a racial slur as his first name.
Yeah.
All right. So we've thank you for allowing me this opportunity to revel in my team winning the World Series. And for anybody again
truly
that is,
thank you to the New York Yankees for providing that inning
for anybody's that joining us on an audiovisual platform. Those are the Puig customized shoes because again, I was about it. Yeah. I was about it with that guy. Let me put my shoe back on though. All right, the Flight 89s are back where they belong. So the other thing we wanted to talk about today, and this is going to be
the more important thing that happened on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean the meat of this episode.
No, the Dodgers won on Monday, didn't they?
Yeah. The meat of this episode, the Academy has its first truly homegrown 90-mile-an-hour arm. So shout out to Academy 18U underclass, I guess is what we would call it. Noah Coury.
Actually, what we're calling it is 18U Tecktiel. So.
Yeah, it's 18U Tecktiel. Our 18U team, Noah Coury, who popped a 90.2 in his baseline bullpen before our velocity development phase. And what I wanted to get into is I want to be able to like title this episode in a very like Instagram grabby fashion, right? This is how you build a 90-mile. Want to throw 90? Do you want to add 16 miles an hour velocity? This is how you do it. You're just really consistent and work really hard for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's the answer. But I think we can get a little bit more granular and kind of talk about like Noah's progression and how he came to us and what we've done to get him to the point that he could throw 90.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing that we can address is the fact that like Noah has a frame that kind of puts him in a position to be able to do that.
Well, all right. I want to start even earlier.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
He came to us having not played a ton of competitive baseball.
Correct.
And immediately, what team did he get? Was he on my team?
As a matter of fact, he was not. He was on our, was he B or C team?
He was on our B team.
Yeah, okay.
And our developmental team.
Yes.
So I just want to start this with a PSA. If you go to an organization, and granted, we're not a run-of-the-mill organization, and you are put on their development team, and the way you take that is to quit or leave and try to find somewhere else to go that will not call you a development player, you probably won't get a whole lot better. Now, granted, not every team is going to say you're on the development team. Here is your development plan of like what we're going to do and the path to getting you not on this team anymore. But like I think that's a really important starting point. Is he was not turned off by immediately being put on the B team.
Yes.
And the development team and saying like there are things you need to be able to do a lot better if you want to move up and play on this next team. And he took it extremely seriously and got to work right away. And not a lot of kids do that. More often than not, parents try to like protect the kids and they get really upset when they're on the B team of the development team and they want them. A lot of parents would rather their kid be on the bench of a winning team than get the reps he needs on the B team and get better.
And I think that the toughest part about that sometimes is I think sometimes parents respond to that placement emotionally. Mm-hmm. And they
understandably, kids do too.
Yeah, and it's understandable entirely, except here. And the reason that I believe that to be true is like because we'll have a split between a competitive team and a development team, but everybody gets access to the same development system, and that's the difference. Right. Is that like we're trying to give everybody the same path forward. So it makes sense to me why sometimes kids will get kind of put in that box where hey, you're not going to be on the most competitive team, you need to improve, and this is why we're going to place you that way. And then either the kid or the parent or some combination of both of them respond to that in a really negative fashion, and they feel like this is sometimes where the thing gets thrown out. Oh, it's just a money grab, right? It's a money grab. You just want my money. You don't really want to develop my kid. So like we're going to fill up the one team's roster with kids that pay, and then the most competitive team is going to be largely comprised of kids who don't pay, but we're just going to let them play for free because they help us look good. And the big significant differentiator for us is we don't do that stuff. Right. We'll bring a kid in like Noah, who, look, Noah threw okay hard for his age and size, but it certainly wasn't.
He wasn't an outlier.
No,
he was good. Like he threw hard relative to his age, but he wasn't like an extreme outlier like I would call him now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a tracking sheet in here where he had let's see, that's a game day tracking sheet where average pitch velocity 69.16, maxed out at 75, and that was January of 23. Mm-hmm. So when you bring that kid in and he's got a good frame, but like definitely doesn't have outlier stuff, and he gets placed on a development team, right? They, to your point, didn't receive that emotionally. I think they took us at our word where we said, hey, we are going to develop him. Here's the system and structure that's going to get him there. But that just afforded us the opportunity to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like that afforded us the opportunity to actually like start developing that kid and get it better.
And give him the reps that he needed, as opposed to like, you're going to come out of the bullpen a couple of times this year.
Yes.
Like, no, like you're going to start on this team, and like there are days where you're not going to pitch well and you're going to get shelved. There are days where you're going to pitch really well. They're going to put a bunch of balls into play, and your defense isn't going to be great because they're getting better just like you.
Yep.
And like, this is a thing that if your long-term goal is playing in college baseball, which it has been since the day he stepped into our gym.
Yep.
Why would you care about game loss results when you're 14?
Well,
I don't know if we have an athlete who embodies that mentality more than Noah. This is my goal, and I'm not going to let anything short term get in the way of my long term goal of playing high level Division I college baseball.
And I think the thing that I will give Noah and his family credit for is either knowing and understanding what it would take to get there, or trusting us.
It's a combination,
right?
Yeah,
like because again, if Noah or people in his family are like, well, he's got to play against the whoop-de-woo top competition in the area to be able to see if he's any good. We go, hey, you're on a development team, and they go, peace, see you later.
Right. Noah has some really and like most youth athletes are probably going to be this way, but he's got some really wonderful people.
Yeah.
Right over his shoulder, who have like his best interests and mostly know what the right way to do things is, and just needed either a little bit extra help that for us to take it one step further, or just like validation so that famously kids don't always listen to what their guardians say to them. So like, hey, hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And like it definitely is a combination of the two. He's got a lot of wonderful people behind the scenes, like pushing just like we are, to help him reach the goal that he's set for himself.
I mean, I remember talking to a family friend of Noah's before he joined with us, about one thing specifically, which was whether he was going to be almost like allowed to continue to be a position player.
Mm-hmm. That's always been a big thing for
right?
Noah.
And again, part of that was, a response to how a kid with that type of frame gets treated commonly in our industry, right? You kind of go, okay, well, he's an okay pitcher. He doesn't throw incredibly hard, but he's just got to be a PO. He has to be a PO. And well, why? Does he really?
I don't have POs. I refuse to have POs, and he knows that. But my rule is that if you actually start throwing the ball harder than you hit the ball, the choice has been made for you. There's nothing I can do.
Yep.
Luckily, Noah's hitting balls 96, so
yes.
he's still got quite a bit of gap there between his ability to hit and his ability to throw.
Yeah, absolutely. So Noah comes into us. He's a tall kid for his age. Definitely needs to put on a lot of weight. And he also just needs to get a lot better. And our assessment of putting him on a development team was basically, our assessment of putting him on a development team, but in a training system that is like equal in its implementation for the competitive team and the development team, was to get to this point.
Right.
That's the point, right? Is that like, I want that kid to have an opportunity to have video of him throwing 90 at 16 years old, to throw that on his field level account, and then start weaponizing that and talking to coaches.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that everybody needs to understand is that there is not a single game highlight, unless it's paired with data, that you can do that with that gives you the same leverage.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. Like we talked about this on an Academy specific podcast a couple weeks ago, but the thing you need to understand about the high school baseball environment is if only 5% of those kids are going to go on to play college baseball, which means that 95% of those kids are not, then the competitive results that you get against a player population of which 95% are not relevant at the next level, college coaches are going to take that stuff into consideration, right? So this idea of, and again, I've made this point often, and I will continue to make it, when you have parents that are out there in these Facebook groups that are like, I don't understand why why no one wants to talk to my player. He gets outs. Or he hits at the high school level. That's why.
This isn't the first time we've talked about Noah on the pod. We talked about him over the summer because he threw a 12-punchy no-hitter.
That's right.
If I'm sending a video to a college coach, it's not going to be highlights from the 12-punchy no-hitter. It's going to be him throwing 90.2 in his mocap. Or more realistically, it's going to be his next mocap where he throws even harder.
Yeah. And the 12-punchy no-hitter can substantiate the output. And again, in so much as it matters, that 90.2 was like in the 9 pocket, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So, and I kind of wished it wasn't.
A little bit.
Because there's part of me that, like, I really do enjoy that, like, I'll post some throwing video of one of our kids.
Yeet. Yeah.
And it gets yeeted somewhere. Yeah. And it's like there's a couple layers there. For one, understand that, like, the more directional that ball is to the cone of the radar zone, the higher the reading is going to be. So if Noah had zooed it outside of the box and still hit 90, you can make the argument that, like, if it was middle, that's probably a 91, maybe with some change. Yeah. It's going to read a little bit higher. But I do so enjoy on social media that when we post that stuff, and it's just I know Rob Hill is going to ball, right? I know OC is going to go ball.
Yeah.
Like I know Maddox Conger is going to go ball because we're all in on the joke.
Yeah.
But there's the dark side of baseball social media where those guys really do think that way, So yeah, Noah comes in, slight of weight, right? Like needed to add a lot of weight.
I would say he's slight of weight right now.
Still is.
He was massively deficient of weight.
I mean, and we can talk about. I can talk about how much weight he has added, right? Unfortunately, Noah's done such a great job of his weight tracking that it makes
so much.
It's
a lot of data when we had a kid for that long.
Yeah, it is. Noah has put on a lot of size, but he's also put on a lot of strength too. And I think that's another thing that we can talk about a lot just in terms of what we have in terms of HP data. I mean, the first HP assessment I have from him is October of 2022. His athlete score was
scores don't matter.
Was a 0.
Because the score's changed since then.
But let's take a look, right? CMJ height, 33.5. CMJ peak power versus body weight is a 48. Let's look at his most recent one. 2024, 1021. Perfect. Body weight has gone from 143 in October 22 to 167.2 to October 24. So in those 2 years, he's added 24 pounds. If you're a 14-year-old right now, or the parent of a 14-year-old, or you coach 14-year-old kids, and they are in that place where they're anywhere from like less than 100 pounds to barely 120 or whatever, you got to understand that like you can't add height, but you can add mass.
Right, and he's 6'3",
yes.
Right? So like this is extremely thin for what he was, and like. I also want to make sure people know that I don't know if I've ever met a kid with a faster metabolism. So like 24 pounds, if your child ate what Noah eats in his attempts to put on weight, your child would probably put on 40 pounds in that same time period.
Yeah.
And he just burns it off so fast. But one of the things about Noah is he is, and there's, to me, there's one Noah. However, there's a lot of kids that are around the country that are probably pretty similar to Noah, who have really, really big dreams, and want to work really hard and are willing to work really hard to achieve those dreams. And just working hard isn't always the solve. Noah, before he got with us, and shout out to Connor Stratton, was lifting weights and doing a lot of that stuff. Noah was a kid who had some back problems.
Yep.
Because he wanted to work for his goal, and he didn't have enough guidance or direction on specific things, and was doing like 200 crunches a day.
Yeah.
Because he was like, this is what's going to help me reach my goal. To which we were like, dude, you got to stop doing that. It is destroying your back. And he stopped doing it and hasn't had back pain since. But this is the type of kid who was willing to do 200 crunches a day because that's what he thought would help get him playing college baseball. All he needed was for someone to be like, no, that's not the way I want you to work hard. This is the way I want you to work hard. And he took off.
And sometimes this is when you need to rest.
Yeah, but there are so many kids around the country that are willing to put in the work. Yeah. They just don't know what that looks like. And I know we've had this, I don't know if we've talked about this in the pod, probably have. But I know we've had this conversation with some of these kids that the best thing you can do today for your training is actually to rest. I know you want to do something every day, and you feel like if you spend a full day not making any progress towards your goal of playing Division I baseball, you wasted that day.
Yeah.
I get that feeling. So what I need you to understand is that today, rest is the thing you are doing to help progress your ability to play D1 college baseball.
Yep.
And there are so many kids out there who want to put in the work, are willing to put in the work, and don't know what that work is and need more guidance and direction on exactly what the best type of work is so that they're not just working hard. They're working smart.
Yeah.
And working hard can lead to overuse injuries. If you're doing 200 crunches a day, if you're doing 200 push-ups a day, it can lead to overuse injuries, which aren't going to make you better.
And I think the thing that I worry about the most is the kid who is aggressively online, who on a minute by minute basis is getting some fat old bald guy like me who's going this is the thing you need to do, and then this is the thing you need to do, and they're like, well, I guess I'll just do all the things.
Right.
And if I do all the things, I'll get as good as I possibly can be.
Right. Because it's a lot easier than, hey, man, I need you to lift 3 times a week and eat 5,000 calories a day for 2 years.
Yeah. 3 times a week means the other 4 times rest.
Right.
Give your body a shot. I mean, interestingly, I actually had a conversation with my son after practice on Friday, I think. We were talking about what he had programmed what he had done in the strength side for that day. And he was telling me, because, we were having a conversation about, and this is a very age-appropriate conversation when kids are 15, 16 years old, about okay, are you making sure that you are connecting the dots between the thing that you say that's important to you and the place that you want to go and the work that you know that it's going to take to get there? And I was calling him out a little bit for screwing around a little bit at the front part of the workout. And
Can I touch on that a little real quick? The issue, and I tore him apart before you got there, was he didn't take the warm-up set seriously enough. It wasn't the lift itself. It was a lift he could have done. It was only 5 pounds over his max, and he failed a couple times, which if you're only progressing by 5 pounds from what you did a couple weeks ago, you probably shouldn't be failing that much. But he didn't take the warm-up set seriously enough, so his body wasn't ready to execute the actual lift when he got to that point.
Yeah.
And that was kind of eye-opening for him.
Yep.
And he said, the same thing happens on hitting. If I take the warm-ups and my tee stuff way more seriously, I feel better when I hit. Uh-huh.
Do tell.
Yep. That's a thing. And it's a very age-appropriate thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when something has the connotation of a warm-up, they're not going to take it as seriously.
Yes.
They're going to feel like this is a thing I can go through the motions and just this is just to get me warm. This isn't what I need to do when I'm hot.
Yeah.
Well, you can't execute the way you need to when you're hot if you don't execute getting warm properly. And that was the biggest issue with Friday. And it wasn't just him, it was several of them that we had that combo.
Yeah, but even, we're in, I guess what you would say is largely kind of a power phase, right? So the way that the power phase looks, and again, I think this is illustrative of why Noah got to where he got, is because he was diligent in the way that he executed these different types of phases, right? A volume phase, a power phase, etc.
And I will also say, to Noah's credit, almost every practice, we break out as a team at 7:30 because that's when practice is over, and he stays another 15 minutes in the weight room to make sure he finishes the entire lift he has that day, and then he goes home probably closer to 8.
Yeah. So D and I had this conversation where he was telling me, on a power day, the amount of volume that you're going to be doing is not as significant, right? It's more about the output,
right.
Which means you have to push yourself. Right. And he told me at the end of it, he felt like he maybe had a little bit more in the tank. So he chose to do those cable twists or whatever, and he loaded up a crap ton of weight. And he was like, "Dad, I did it until I couldn't do any more reps." He's like, he's doing it to failure. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, My brother, I'm not sure that's what we need to be doing on a power day.
Right.
Point that I'm trying to make is that, like, again, my kid's been here forever, and he still, I think, finds himself sometimes in that box of, like, it's hard to trust that sometimes following the program is just the thing that you need to do.
Right, and, like, we talk about it on the pod. Sacrificing the short term for the long term is so much easier said than done, especially the younger you are.
Yeah.
And, like, the short term being, like, I'm on my 90-second rest break in the weight room, and I'm goofing around with my buddies that I only get to see a couple times a week, and, now it's 130 seconds, so I'm 40 seconds over my rest break. And if I do that on every single one, I just probably took 6-7 minutes out of my entire lift by resting for too long because I was goofing off with friends or whatever. And, like, those are really, really, even for the most dedicated athletes, those kind of short-term sacrifices, you can't get that upset when they don't make them. Yes. Because, like, it's totally understandable. You're a kid. You want to hang out with your friends. I'll let you take a rest for 130 seconds as opposed to 90.
Yeah.
And, like, you got to know that the long-term trade-off is you're probably losing 5 to 8 minutes off your lift at the end of the day. Maybe you stay later to finish. Maybe you don't. Whatever it is, the Casey Weathers, you get what, how good can you be?
Yep.
You'll find out, and it's up to you. And, like, Noah is not one of my social lifters.
No, he gets after it.
He gets after it. And he still rarely finishes the lift in time.
Yeah.
Whereas I got a lot of social lifters, hit 7:30, we're out.
Yeah. Yeah. So point being that I think the one thing that we can talk about from a programming standpoint to get a little bit more specific about how Noah developed is time in the strength side in our what we would call high performance was critical, absolutely critical to not only the weight gain but also the increases in output. And you can see it when you start to look at some of his data, right? Like the first time Noah did an IMTP pull, or isometric mid-thigh pull, for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's kind of like a deadlift where you're almost at lockout, but what you're really doing, because the bar doesn't move, is you're really like pushing force into the floor. So Noah had his first IMTP in, let's see,
August.
In July 31st, right? July 31st of this year, pulled a 3K, 3,030, right? 3,030 watts, which is pretty darn good for a 16-year-old kid that still needs to add a lot more weight. Amusingly, he had a retest in September where we didn't do the IMTP, but the predicted IMTP in that date was 2447, right? So that predictive, even 2 months later, is still predicting based on kind of our algorithm and our history of athletes.
Height, weight. Yeah.
Right, height, weight, that he would be 600 watts less than what he actually pulled. And then when he re-pulled a new IMTP on the 21st of October, a 3.5K. Which is, for anybody that doesn't understand what these numbers mean, that's pretty darn legit for his age, height, weight. And again, it's 1,100 more points than his last predicted IMTP, which is pretty tight. Strength to body weight, massive improvements there. I don't have a strength to body weight from him back in 2022 because we were just having to do the jump test back then. But again, in July, put up a 4.1. And then improve that even further in 3 months, less than 3 months, at a 4.74.
I have quite a few athletes on my team that are right around that 5 number, which is pretty ludicrous.
It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's stupid good. You can also see this in the counter movement jump height, 33.5 centimeters back in October of 22, 41.8 centimeters in October of 24. CMJ peak power, same thing, right? Putting around a 3K back in October of 22, 4,400 in October of 24. I don't think we can stress enough how important it is for you, if you're a parent or a coach, or if even you're an athlete, to address the athletic development side. You have to do it. And all the old tropes about this being a thing that you need to wait to do any strength training until your growth plates close, or you need to wait to do any strength training until testosterone starts to fire. That's why we have long-term athletic development curriculum in the Skills at Scale book, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do, even with younger athletes, to help them make what we would call software changes, not hardware changes. The way that we've kind of talked about this before is that, like, when kids start having testosterone is firing, that's when they can start making hardware changes, right? They can start to add on mass, they can start to add on muscle, and that impacts performance, obviously. But there is scientific proof and evidence that when kids are younger than that, they can still make what you would call neurological changes to rates of force output that aren't predicated on increased lean body mass. It's just they're more effective about the way that they neurologically can produce force with the same amount of mass.
Yeah.
How do you think that affects not only their athleticism, but their ability to apply it in a skill? Right? If you're better at controlling, in a neurological standpoint, the amount of force you can produce, do you think that probably bodes well for your ability to, like, control your body generally?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I kind of tend to think that.
So again, you know, like I wrote up this post for our Academy Slack and for our Academy Flex members to kind of understand why we harp on this stuff so frequently. It's all the same thing. If you are attached to this idea of, like, baseball skill development and you are intentionally ignorant about athletic development, well, guess what? You're just not going to get to where you want to go. You're just not.
Right.
You're just not.
Yeah. And I want to add some color to this skill development side for Noah, specifically on the throwing side. Every athlete is going to have to miss some amount of time, right? They're kids, vacations happen, they get sick, whatever. Every athlete's going to miss X amount of practices.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if he's here or not. I get pulse data from him.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
He has to miss a practice. He is one of the only, probably one of my only kids, one of our Academy's only kids, and honestly probably one of the rare 16-year-olds in the country that I don't even have to tell him. Like, if he can't be there, he goes into track, looks at what his program is, does his throwing, uploads the data, and I can see it. And it's very easy. Like last year, he left for like 2 months to go on the East Coast for a school trip.
Yep.
And through the entire time he was out there, was sending me messages the whole time. Yeah. However, the most important thing is we talk about consistency of training.
Yes.
And that doesn't just mean doing the training that's programmed to you and like going through the motions. He understands the assignment of every type of day. We have radar guns in all of our cages. Mm-hmm. Every recovery day, I have to yell at 5 to 10 of my kids who have all been here for a very long time for throwing above the velocity goal that they have on a recovery day. I have never had to yell at that kid. He doesn't even attempt to, right? His recovery days, perfect. No attempt to like let it eat, which every other kid I have. Yep. It's really hard for a child to pick up a ball and have a radar gun in front of you and not kind of want to light up a number.
Yeah.
And he just has no interest in doing that when he's not supposed to. And that's a really rare thing for a trainee, let alone like a 16-year-old, to follow the programming that consistently and that well, where like he makes the most out of every recovery day he has.
Yeah.
He makes the most out of every B day, out of every A day, and every velo day. Most athletes make the most out of their velo days and their A days and probably their B days. Yeah. Most athletes mail their recovery in. We got a lot of athletes, and this was a conversation that we had recently, that a lot of athletes on our regular floor don't come in to do their recovery days.
Yeah.
They just come in to throw their high intent days because like recovery day I can do at home. But if they don't wear their pulse, we don't actually know how many of these athletes are doing their recovery days.
Sure.
And in a lot of cases, athletes mail in their recovery days, don't do them very well. It's a recovery day. I'm supposed to throw 50%. I don't need an intent here.
Yeah.
And he has specific things that he attacks every time he picks up a baseball, and like never gets outside of those lanes. He is a kid that when we take 2 months off from throwing every year, for a lot of these kids, it is like putting their arm in a sling for 2 months. Like they cannot handle not throwing or not being able to do anything, fielding, whatever, for 2 full months. I am very aware because of, no, I don't know if you listen to this, but I apologize in advance. The sheer amount of messages that I get from him on a consistent basis that have something to do with when can I throw hard again? When can I throw off a mound again? When can I pitch? Yeah. Those types of things. And never once has he complained about my answer or disagreed with my answer or disobeyed what I'm asking him to do.
Yeah.
He's patient. And then he goes out and gets the job done, whatever the job is. And that is I cannot express how rare that is among professional athletes all the way down to kids. Like following the program that well, even when it's not fun. It's a lot harder to let it eat a little bit than to really hold yourself to 60% or 50% in a recovery day. And like, he's a kid that understands that training isn't always fun.
But that doesn't mean that it's not effectively the athlete's responsibility to still be diligent in the execution of it. Like, and again, this, I think the good thing that came out of Danny and I having that conversation about, whether he took the warm up seriously, about some of this extra work he was trying to do because he wanted to feel like he checked the box. I got to break out the old, discipline isn't called discipline because you're always doing the thing that you love to do. The tricky thing about discipline, and the reason it's important, is because you have to do the thing that you don't want to do, but you still do it anyways.
You still do it anyways.
You still do it anyways.
Yep.
And I will say, we had this conversation, and it didn't go bad, but it certainly, I think being held accountable sometimes isn't always comfortable.
Often it's not.
Often not, right? I picked up Danny's phone to do something, I think on Sunday when we had going on field, and he had changed his lock screen to like that discipline quote.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say he changed his password so I couldn't get in.
No, it was his lock screen now is like its discipline is making yourself do the thing that you don't necessarily love to do.
I love it.
And I was like, okay, I like the signal,
Yeah.
So to get a little bit more granular again about some of Noah's throwing development, and I want to make sure that we don't give him, we got to give him his props because what you just said, right? His hitting development is pairing alongside everything on the throwing side as well. But to kind of to get into this, right? First velos we have from Noah, if I go back to 22, I mean, he's got a red ball, which is, about the weight of a baseball, 74.4. He had a red ball walking windup of 69.8 in December of 22. He's made a lot of progress. Then you go to his mocaps, or wait, no, that's the assessment bullpen. Where are the mocaps? Here we go. March of 23, max of 77.
And that was after his first full velo phase.
Yeah, after first velo phase, got him up to 77. Average of 76.08. October 23, punching 8 for the first time. Average of 79.7. February of 24, so before he went to the high school season, second velo phase had been completed, finding 87.4. So now we put on 10. But again, I think the thing to understand is that going from 70 to 80, or even mid sevens to low mid eights, is different than going from mid eights to 9. Mm-hmm. It just, everything that we can see, it just requires that much more diligence, that much more work, that much more attention to detail. Noah executed that August of 24 before we shut it down, before we went into the no throw, found an 89.4, so he was right on the cusp. And then since then, what we've done is we took 6 weeks off of throwing entirely, or was it?
It was closer to 8.
Yeah, it's closer to 8.
Yeah.
And then another 8-ish weeks of onboard. Mm-hmm. And we haven't done any velocity work. We've been super consistent on the strength side, and he put up basically another mile an hour, a shade under that, without doing a pull down, right, without getting off the mound and throwing with full intent. He added a mile an hour without doing a velo phase.
Right, and a lot of that was a very serious conversation at the end of last year of your mechanics are you're maxed out.
Yes.
Your velo is maxed out for what your body type is.
Yes.
The most important thing that you can do is 5,000 calories doesn't appear to be enough for you every day to gain the weight you need. So he is up to that to a number that I'm not going to publicly state on a pod because it's really large, and has gained 10 pounds in that span.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you gain 10 pounds, that's a lot more important than throwing a pull down or a plow wheel or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and we can look at Noah's mechanics. Like we can see in terms of like his arm action scores, they're real good.
They are good. They are good.
They're pretty stupid good. Which again, I think is an important thing to understand is that like we have enough information to know that there is a certain point where like, hey man, if we take you from 97th to 98th percentile in terms of arm action, is that really going to manifest itself in a massive increase in output? Probably not. Like there isn't a ton of gold in that hill. Right there isn't. So, this idea I think that gets thrown around sometimes about just like, I mean, Danny, I think mostly as an attempt to troll me, sent me that video on Instagram of A-Rod watching some kids like doing a high intent pen, and then he goes on and on about how kids 15 and 16 years old shouldn't pay attention to radar guns, should never throw in front of a radar gun, and you should just focus on being a complete pitcher and focus on your mechanics. It's like, well, Noah had great arm action pretty good arm action when he came to us. I don't think it was that low. I mean, I guess I can go back in and look.
It was lower, but it wasn't that low.
It wasn't that low.
No.
So if Noah had not thrown in front of a radar gun, and he had not gone on a scale, and he had quote unquote done the A-Rod thing and focused on his mechanics, he's not throwing 90 right now. He's just not. I mean, let's see. His first standard deviation, blah, 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 blah. Stuff's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like, all of his stuff was pretty good. I mean, his biggest deficiency was...
leg block.
Max elbow extension velocity was not as high as it could be, but it wasn't terrible either.
No, but his comp scores, it was the leg block.
Yeah.
And that's directly attributable to a strength deficit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his Biomex score in March of 23, arm action, 91st percentile. Lower half block, 62nd percentile. So, like, that's the biggest thing, right?
But what date was that?
March of 23.
Oh, yeah. But then the most recent run, the league leg block actually got worse.
Yeah.
Because he's moving faster.
Let me pull it.
And we're still a little bit of a strength deficit from like consistently getting that block down.
Yeah.
A couple minor mechanical tweaks or whatever, but that's where we're at this point.
Yeah.
It's all very, very minor. And there's only so much we can do, even if you nail every one of these mechanical adjustments.
Yeah.
There's not low-hanging fruit here with your mechanics that we can just like pick off easily.
Yep.
You hit 185 pounds, you're probably going to be sitting 95.
Yeah. Arm action at present, 98th percentile.
Yeah.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Lower half COG, 96th percentile. That's pretty tight. Lower half block, 43rd percentile.
That's what I said. It got worse.
So
everything else got better, and that got worse.
Yeah. Arm velo's good. Hip shoulder separation, 94th percentile.
Like
he's a.
What's
really,
the overall
really,
composite score?
97th percentile.
Yeah, 97th percentile. Pretty good.
And that's not measured against our population of 16-year-olds.
No.
That's measured against every single pro, every single college player, every single high school player that's come into our gym.
Yeah. And Noah, as much as I love him, actually, this makes me love him more. He's a psychopath.
Yeah.
And the best kind of psychopath.
Yep.
But he is a kid who he is incredibly self-critical. And he wants you to be critical.
Yes.
Not you. He wants me to be critical all the time.
He wants that type of feedback.
Right. That's the feedback that propels him the most, is like the very critical feedback. And not every kid is, even if they say they want that, not every kid can actually like handle that level of critical feedback. And this mocap, his goal going in was...
let's talk about that.
So
that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So the two of us talked beforehand, and he wanted to hit 3. He wanted to hit 93.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I love that goal. Let's talk about how unreasonable it is, because we haven't even done a velo phase since you hit 89.4.
Yeah.
And like, if you hit 90, that is huge. Like that should be like straight up our goal. Like, half mile an hour since not having done a velo phase is great.
Yeah.
And we agreed that there were going to be different levels. So if he hit 90, he couldn't be angry, but I would allow him to be dissatisfied. So you could be dissatisfied, but you can't be angry. Mm-hmm. 91 would have been content. 92 would have been happy, and 93 would have been ecstatic.
Yeah.
So he was dissatisfied with becoming our first 90-mile-an-hour thrower in Academy.
Yeah.
And, like, I am great with him being dissatisfied about that.
Yeah.
That is what you want as a coach, is a kid who does really impressive things and is so not impressed with his ability to do those things that he just wants more.
Yeah.
But it does create a challenge as a coach, because, like, I could feed into that, and it could be really dangerous.
Yes. Yes.
And I refuse to feed into that, because, like, that's a mentality that, honestly, I don't know how many youth coaches have seen. Probably the better youth coaches have seen that mentality, but, like, I worked in pro ball, so I've seen that mentality in professional baseball players of, like, oh, cool, I PR'd, I'm still not happy.
Yeah, the perpetual dissatisfaction.
Right. I'm never going to be happy. Yeah. Like, cool, I hit 90. I wanted 91. Like, why didn't I hit 91?
Yeah.
Right. It's always going to be there. And, like, that's legitimately one of the more difficult kids to coach.
Yeah.
Because they can get very down on themselves and lose confidence pretty quickly. And it's like you have to walk that line of slightly agreeing with them and feeding into their psychopath tendencies, but also, like, making sure they know that, like, yeah, man, you're a psycho. You're fine. You're on the right path. Like, I'm great with your expectations, but, like, we can't, the world isn't over when we don't hit these ridiculously high expectations. Yeah. And there are a lot of kids out there that are of that mindset. Your son is definitely one of them.
Yep.
I hit a cool number. The number I've been wanting to hit, and then we can't take 2 seconds to be happy with hitting that number. We immediately have to be mad that we didn't hit a higher number. Yeah. And, like, truthfully, those are the players that actually go far in the game. But they're really hard to coach.
It's tough for them to understand that there is some amount of value in, like, smelling the proverbial roses.
Yeah.
You know, like when Noah came off the bump, and after he had found the 90, kept chasing it, and, like, and everything was like 89.7, 89.9, 89.8, or whatever. Like, it's, as far as I'm concerned, he basically lived right there.
Yeah.
So that number is not a misread. It's super legit. And then as soon as he finished, he was the first one that, like, got in the chair that I was sitting in to get video of his throw, and he's getting video for one of his teammates.
And giving him tips.
And
providing smelling salts.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
sure,
should say that on the pod.
Sure.
He's a big smelling salt guy.
Yeah. And the importance of that signal.
Yeah.
To have a kid who just punched a 9, and again, it's a first homegrown 9 that we've had in our history, to like, he could have just gone. He could have left the lab.
I told the kids, because the guys who mocapped on Wednesday barely hit.
Yeah.
Noah didn't hit.
Yeah.
Because we ran out of time. And I said, as soon as you're done with your mocap, you can go start to take some rounds.
Yeah.
A couple of them did. He didn't. He wanted to stay back there and support his teammates.
Yep.
And, like, you know, it's crazy when you hit 90 and then immediately you sit down in the chair and start taking video and cheering on someone who's trying to hit 80.
Yeah.
79.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, it can be really easy in that situation to talk trash, gloat a little bit, smell your roses a little too much.
Especially
and he's
as a 15,
especially
as
at that age.
Yeah, man.
Super not that kid. But, like, the immediate being as excited for Ben Grimes to hit 79.
Yep.
as he was more excited for Ben Grimes to do it than he was to hit 90.
Yeah.
And it's like, that says a lot about the kid. I can't say enough good things about the kid, but like, this by no means was this an accident.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the only thing that I really relished the opportunity to do was like, I was able to like pull the, at Driveline here, on the main floors, the collegiate professional floors or whatever, we have shirts that are only available if you throw 90 in the lab or you hit 100 in the lab or you PR in the lab.
Yep.
And Noah is the first academy kid I was ever able to give that shirt to. And I went over and I was like, Noah, what size shirt you wear? He's like, I'm probably a large. Pulled one out of the box, gave it to him. And he was like, okay. But and I was worried that he was either like in the disappointed phase that he didn't find a 1 or better. And he was like focusing on his teammate because he's trying to be that guy, which is great. But I was worried that he was like not taking the time to smell the roses. Mm-hmm. So then I came back over later and I was like, hey, can I take a picture of you with the shirt? And he's like, yeah. And he's just kind of like holding it up like, like he's like a hostage.
Yeah,
right?
It's a hostage video.
And it's like, hey, remember that time you threw 90? It was pretty tight. And then this
you
giant,
get a little bit of a smile.
Yeah, the giant ear-to-ear smile comes out. That's the picture that I got. And yeah, I think you're 100% right. Those kids are an absolute challenge. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Danny and I had one conversation, I think after the tournament this summer, the 18U thing. And he said something. It was like, he was like, the thing I love about baseball is it's always like, what's next? And it's like, okay, great, because I can extrapolate from that. I want him attached to the process, mm-hmm. right? I want him to attach to this process of self-improvement. But to your exact point, he, like Noah, like Levi, like a bunch of kids that we have here, sometimes need that enforced, hey, remember that cool thing that you did mm-hmm. that you worked really hard for? Yeah. Let's celebrate that just a touch.
Yeah, because I have a lot of kids on my team who find more, maybe not more, but as much joy in their teammates' successes as they do in their own. In their own. And honestly, in a lot of cases, it's probably they would rather see a teammate PR than like them PR.
Yeah.
Like they get really excited. Like Noah last year, we were blowing out a team. And once again, 6'3", pitches, first, third, can play outfield. Begged me to catch.
I forgot about this.
Because his best bud, who catches for him, was going to pitch in a game. Yeah. And this kid supports him, and he wanted to turn that around and catch for Lucas. Yeah. It was hilarious because Lucas, I hope you don't listen. Well, you probably do listen to the pod. Lucas doesn't have Noah's height. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And Noah was wearing Lucas's catcher's gear, which was just a hilarious sight. It looked like a crop top, like the chest protector looked like a crop top. But like, you're not going to find a whole lot of kids who are on a D1 track who in a blowout are going to be like, can I please catch for him?
Yeah, let me get behind the dish.
Let me get behind the dish. Yeah. Like, yeah, I could take a foul tip and off the hand right here, and there's the rest of my summer.
Yep.
I don't really care. I want to do this for him.
Yeah.
I want to be there for my teammate like that. And like, it is easier to coach them knowing that, like, yeah, that's how I can get a lot of these guys to find joy is like, in your teammate's success and not necessarily your own success. Now, I do want them to find joy in their own success at some point, or like some semblance of joy in their own success. But when you can have a group that does find more joy in the success of each other, it does help deal with those kids who are constantly self-critical, and like, you can't make a kid not self-critical.
Yeah. Well, I would if I could.
Yes.
And I think the one thing we can kind of finish with here is that we haven't talked a lot about games. So I did. I think I pulled it up. It should be still here. Noah pitched 29.2 innings last year. Okay, so let's just call that.
Is that true? That's it?
Let's just call that 30.
That's it?
Yeah.
Felt like more.
That's it. And if I look back even further, I should be able to find it.
I was going to look at that. The year before, the 14U?
Yeah. The 14U year, I got him for 2 1/3 plus 2 1/3 plus.
Remove that 2 1/3. That's what he played for me.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? That was the tournament where we had the portable mound, where his stride took him off the mound.
Oh, good Lord.
And wound up with like lower back spasms because he kept landing.
Yeah.
At the base of it.
I got him for 3 innings on orange.
What?
Yeah.
That can't be right. He threw a lot more than 3 innings for them that year.
So yeah, but I guess the point being that again, I'm just going to double down on this message that like the thing that's going to open doors for Noah, for other kids like Noah who have that type of skill presentation, it's not
36.
the games. Okay.
36 1/3.
Perfect.
14U.
Oh, you know what? I must have had some filters that it's game changer filters. So yeah, 29 innings this year, 36 innings the year before.
Yeah. And let me read some things.
Yeah, sure.
This was 14U. 36 innings. 45 runs.
Tight.
44 walks.
Tight.
60 punchies.
That's tight.
Okay. Last year.
Yes.
I gotta find. Hold on.
Game changer doesn't make
I was
this
gonna say we're doing
stuff
this live.
super easy. So
29 2/3.
Yep.
28 walks.
Oh.
So we're down to below a walk an inning.
Yeah.
48 punchies.
Oh, weird.
So we didn't lose that many punchies.
Nope.
13 runs.
Cut those in by a quarter, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why your stats don't matter when you're 14.
No.
And honestly, last year's stats don't matter.
Yeah.
Neither of those are the same pitcher. The same kid. They don't tell you a story.
Yeah. I mean, you could point to, I guess, a trend line of evolution, an evolution of effectiveness.
Yeah.
But again, to substantiate your larger point, it's not like his stat line at 14U colored our decision to continue to give him opportunities at 15U.
Right. So if you got a kid who's walking over a guy an inning,
yeah,
maybe don't stop him pitching if he's got a pretty good arm.
Yeah.
That's a thing that, like, they're not going to be great at throwing strikes consistently when they're younger and, like, their bodies are still developing. You could make that kid stop pitching, and then you won't have someone who's throwing 90 at 16.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if you walk dudes.
Yeah.
Or give up more than a run an inning.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what the goal of this summer was.
Yeah. So that's less than 75 innings over the last 2 years, right? How many kids are throwing more than 75 innings in a summer season alone? Right?
Yeah, it's sadly that number's really high.
Like, I mean, you know,
I mean, think about it. There are guys out there, even if you're saying generously, they're only going 5 innings per start.
Yeah.
It's 14 starts.
Yeah.
There are teams that play
all day long.
14 games in a year.
Yeah.
In the summer.
All day long.
14 tournaments, I should say.
And again, you know, I think this just comes back to the same thing that we always talk about, which is like, what's the intention? Like, what are we trying to do? We're pretty clear about our intention. Develop kids that can compete at the high school baseball level over a long period of time, and then from that point, refine that skill set to the point that we can open up the doors for collegiate play.
Right.
And if the default position there is like, hey, I just want to get the most out of my high school baseball experience because I don't want to play college baseball, that's fine. But like, you know, we're trying to do one thing specifically.
Yep.
And you know, I think the great thing about Noah's story to this point is that I think we have a lot of decisions we can point to, both that we made organizationally or decisions that you made as a coach that are all in service to that idea. And like, not for nothing, but the fact that it's landing the way that it's landing is pretty flippin' validating, you know. Like, and I will say that, like, when I posted Noah's videos on social, It got a ton of traction, linked to his field level account because that's kind of how we're trying to connect our kids to college coaches. Shout out to field level. I had one person that was like, wanted to say some slick stuff about arm injury, but it's like, again, the kid has pitched less than 75 innings over the last 2 years. He stayed entirely diligent about our arm care program, about our throwing program, about the strength program. So like, and I'll knock on something because I want all of our kids to stay healthy, but like, you're an idiot if you just conclude that like velocity, driveline, injury is like the relationship.
Yeah.
And you're missing the forest for the trees because of all of the intentional steps and the intentional design that we have with this program that's designed to get this outcome. Healthy kids that throw hard. It's doable. You just have to not be an idiot about things like the games, about taking time off. Because again, the kid wants to continue to work. He wants to get better. And if you hadn't been the one that was like, no, we're not throwing right now, or no, we're not throwing hard right now, and had he not listened, we don't land here.
Nope.
We don't land here. And that maxim is true for both a kid like Noah, who found a 9, and that's great, but it's also true for Ben Grimes, who's also generally following the program and has gone from like a low 60 thrower to a kid that's up at 79.
I was going to say, he made a actually probably similar velocity jump in a similar amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just started at a much lower point.
Yep. And, look,
And you can say the same thing about Jonathan Schumacher.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Who's probably someone we should talk about in this pod at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
because he did throw at 75 miles an hour, being a little tiny guy.
Yes, he did. I mean, when Shu's one of our young dudes, that'll be one of those underclassmen on your 18U team predominantly. And Shu did it the right way when he posted his pitching mocap video. He posted it up and he added the Driveline Youth. You can find us at Driveline Youth on all of our socials if you want to follow along. And I saw it, and it took me about 3 seconds to be like, add to story, caption, trust in Shu. Because that kid is, I think, at least in my not coaching him assessment, is just about as diligent as Noah. He is just about as hardworking as Noah. Like,
I have 2 athletes that I never have to worry about whether or not they're here, if they're going to get their throwing in.
Yeah. Yeah. Just these kids are just putting their heads down and they work. One of them is very slight of stature. One of them is 6'3".
There is a literal foot separating the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But but the gap in terms of how they approach their work is incredibly minuscule. Right. And I think that's the only tricky thing about this is kids are going to present you with like different attachments to this type of stuff. And I think, I mean, to bring it all the way around to complete kind of the circle, the reason that I know that you and I are on the exact same page about how much love we want this program to impart is because that's the thing that's going to drive them to the compliance about the program. It's just, that's the equalizer.
Yes. Yeah. And it helps when you see nice numbers.
Yes.
And then you're going to be way more compliant. And like,
yeah. And the only point that I want to make is that like that 75 for Shu is just as relevant as Noah finding 100%. A 9. Both of them, regardless of the 15 mile an hour disparity, they push the same button. And I'm aware that there's other ways you can do it, but I can't help but like, I see when we train with data and we're able to communicate that data to kids that like, that's the hook. The hook is you get the proof. You get undeniable proof that you are making this progress. You've put in all this work and it resolved itself in this output.
Yep. And we could probably, we've been talking for a while, so we can probably wrap this up. But the last piece here is every year I sit down with Noah and his people.
Yeah.
And we talk about what the plan is for next year.
Yep.
There's never, I've never had to question whether Danny's going to come back.
True.
Thank you.
Largely.
Noah, to his and his family's credit, it's, we want to come back. What's the plan look like for next year?
Yeah.
What's the plan? How is it going to help us reach our goals?
Yep.
And after 14U, that conversation relied revolved almost entirely around the 48 walks and 36 innings or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He needs to throw more strikes. They trusted me that we could do that without playing games.
Yeah.
That I could get him throwing more strikes regardless of playing more innings, throwing more competitive innings, being on a field, whatever that is. Being able to cut someone's walk rate like that outside of competition is a thing that, I feel like people online all the time say we can't do. Well, let me tell you, we have some proof, and he's not the only one.
Yeah.
But that, there's a lot of things competitively that you want to get better at, and the actual way to get better at them is just training to be better at the other stuff.
It wasn't by doing
we did intended zones, but it was just more getting your mechanics better and throwing the ball harder with more confidence.
But we didn't do, I think the conventional thing with a kid like that would be we just have to do a bunch of touch and feel pens, right? And we don't run we don't run the intended zone pens like that.
No.
It's not like a 50% throw a pitch and then I just word vomit at you about your mechanics that are, it's not that. Yeah, we did the thing.
Yeah, and he could have gone elsewhere and said, I throw kind of hard for 15. Because he was right around 80. I throw kind of hard for 15, a little over 80. And I just didn't throw enough strikes last year because Driveline didn't focus on command and strike throwing. And you know how many organizations in this area would have been like, oh, we can help you. We can get you throwing strikes. Yeah. All it takes is this is our fall ball schedule, and this is our spring ball schedule, and this is our summer ball schedule. And that's all. By the end of next summer, you'll have thrown 100 innings, and we'll have this command problem ironed out.
You'll have all these game reps.
Right. Yeah. And your command won't be an issue anymore. Right? And it's all right, well, or you just do this, and the command problem is going to go away as you get older, more coordinated, better athletically.
Yeah.
More consistent, being able to repeat things much better than you can when you're 13 or 14. All these things will just help you gain more command as you get older.
Yeah, and it's not simple.
No.
And I think ultimately, I think the reason that message about here we're going to play these games in the fall, we're going to play these games in the winter, that's a lot simpler. And it preys on this idea that you need to, I guess if the skill needs to improve, I just need to keep practicing the skill in game competitions to derive that type of improvement.
Right.
But turns out that there's another way you can do it. You could
while adding 10 miles an hour velo.
Yeah, while adding 10 miles an hour velo, while while continuing to develop your overall athleticism, not going to infinite showcases, not going to rando coaches that are going to give you, a dissertation on what's wrong with your mechanics. It's just it's patterning, it's systems, it's holistic development, which we only afford ourselves the opportunity to do in a team.
Correct.
And again, I think I touched on this briefly, and I kind of saladed the point, but the message that I put out to our Academy families and to our Academy Flex families is that this is only the result of a collection of choices that we are enabled to make because the team is the container. It just is.
Yeah.
And, to be really frank about it, the performance of our organization in Washington in that regard is we're in a really good place. Arizona is ripe for opportunity to get to the same place when we launch teams in Florida, because I know that some of you guys are listening down there and you've sent those messages asking. It's probably going to wait a little bit in Florida because we want to make sure that when we're ready to launch teams, we're going to launch it the right way.
Yeah, and we can cut this out of the pot if you don't want me saying this, but I think one of the biggest things that we've learned is when we start in a location, we're going to get, most likely, 5 to 8 kids at a certain age who are all pretty committed, pretty good, and it's like a good core of a team.
Yeah.
When we start with teams, the only thing that we can do from there is go and find 4 to 5 other players to fill out the bottom of that roster who likely aren't going to be as committed, aren't as interested in the training, don't have the same goals, aren't as competitive, whatever. And then the season doesn't go great, largely for the 5 to 8 kids that are super competitive because their season was made worse by the bottom half of that roster.
Yes.
And we've done this a couple of times. It kind of happened up here originally when we did it.
We've gone through the gestation period of that exact thing here. We did that.
Right. So basically the answer of when we're going to have teams in Florida is like when a team presents itself. When we have enough kids that we don't feel like we have to fill out a roster, we are happy to go launch a team right away because we do know that that is the best way to do this thing.
Yeah.
It's just the pitfall of that is when you don't have a full team, trying to start a team without a full team is a little biting off more than you can chew.
Yeah, I mean, you end up in the glass eating phase.
Right.
And we ate a lot of glass up here at the start. I've been thinking about this a lot, with the pending Florida launch, and I think you're right about kind of the numbers. I think the tricky thing is that, like, you just need to get to that number where if you have enough of a core where the culture compels those other kids to get it.
Correct.
That's the number.
Yep.
And and that I don't know exactly what that number is.
No, but the younger it is, the higher that number has to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
The younger the group
absolutely, man. I mean, I think look, if we were going to do a 10U team in Florida, we probably have to have 11 that are committed.
I was going to say it would be no less than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably it, right? 12, 13, I think it's probably 10, 9. Maybe you can get by with 8. But you need the people who they haven't completely caught religion to be close enough to the people that have that they seem like they understand that they're expressing the same benefit.
Right. So like our plan is to try to get them to catch religion before we start the teams.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's do some training. Let's get you in the building so you can see what we do and how we do it so that you start to realize, oh, there's a much better way to do this. Yeah. And you start getting the buy-in that way as opposed to just starting straight with teams.
Yeah, and so I guess public appeal, if you've got a collection of 8 to 12 kids between the ages of 10 to 14 and you're in the local to the Tampa area and you're really
or Arizona
or in Arizona or close enough to Scottsdale, and in the words of Master P, if you were really about it, Deven at drivelinebaseball.com, holler at me 2 E's because that's what we're looking for, right? Is it like the interesting thing I think about us organizationally now that we're starting to spread into 3 different states is that, like, Washington is at a place where, look, you or I or anybody here can go out and have conversations with a parent and be like, they can ask those type of questions that Noah's family's asked, and I can go, let me tell you some stories, because we've got a number of success stories for kids like Noah, kids like Thaddeus. Like, we have both sides of it.
So the Noah and the Thaddeus are 2 very, very different sides of that coin. But I think a large part of that is if Noah were to live in Phoenix and his family were to live in the Phoenix area, he would have been hounded by so many teams before he ever came to Driveline.
Yeah.
Like, just as like a tall kid who likes playing baseball and like has some athletic ability, like, we're gonna take this kid and we're gonna burn him into the ground. He likes to pitch. Like, we're gonna get this kid to pitch.
Yeah.
And we don't quite have that travel baseball foothold in Washington.
Yeah.
Where, like, they had questions, his family had questions, was looking for an avenue to do this, and they found us. You might not be as lucky in Arizona to, like, find us. There might be a million obstacles in the middle of, like, do this, do this, do this, do this. There's this team down the street. There's this facility over here.
Yep.
And Florida's going to be the same as Arizona in a lot of ways.
And the tricky part is that, like, in both of those places, in Arizona and Florida, there is a litany of dudes that played pro ball in one flavor or another, and they're going to make that appeal to a parent and be like, well, you should come here. And I'm certainly, look, I'm not trying to construct this paradigm where, like, we're the good guys, and anybody that isn't down with us is a bad guy and is incapable of doing good. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest about the fact that like we are rapidly approaching a point where we've seen these kids who have stayed consistent with the program and are getting outlier results from that consistency. It's not just my son anymore, which is like it's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best thing.
Yeah.
You know, like buddy of mine sent me a message today and he had just saw like the turbo sinker at 86 that Danny threw last year. And he was like, holy crap, that's great, blah, blah, blah. And I've always been super weirded out about having my kid be the tip of the spear, you know, because we need a larger area of effect. With the numbers of kids that we are, you know, the proverbial 90-mile-an-hour army of hitters, you're going to see some of those biomechs on our social media shortly. With our first home ground 90-mile-an-hour arm, like we're getting a much larger sample size of stories, of development stories that we can tell parents and tell kids that, like, you want to know why we run this thing so specifically? You want to know why the team is the ultimate expression of what Academy can provide developmentally? This is why.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Flex program, we are doing the absolute best we can with the configuration of schedule that we can be. That's why we called it Flex, right? It's designed to be flexible with that. But you know, that doesn't mean that there isn't another thing. And the other thing is being so bought in that you're on the team, that we control the whole schedule because it affords us this type of holistic, longitudinal development.
Yep.
That's why we do it that way.
Yep.
And as far as and again, I'll triple down. That's the reason why, as long as I am here, it is always going to revolve around the team being the ultimate expression, is because it is simply the vehicle to deliver those type of results. So until I am taking a dirt nap or no longer here, that's the way it's going to be. And if you want to do the Flex thing, because that's either logistically, that's what is kind of capable of you, or you've got a team that like you really enjoy, it's a good collection of families, good collection of kids, you want to stay on there, we have that thing, right? We have that thing. But I'm not going to be shy about the fact that, like, I want you...
You're not going to get the same results.
You know, 6 to 9 months later to go, hey, tell me about how the Driveline team works again, right? Like, because that just affords us...
Yep.
And again, it's a choice thing, it's a schedule thing, it's a consistency thing.
Yep.
That's how that works. I guess we don't have a defensive defensive segment to talk about because the fifth inning happened.
Yeah,
we already talked about that.
That's the best segment I could have.
Oh, it's so great. So
just watch it on
great.
loop.
So great. You know, it's funny. Like, I've seen people trying to figure out, like, on the Rizzo Cole, who's going to cover first thing, like trying to point the finger at one of them, and it's like it's kind of just both. To me, it's just kind of both, right? I saw Rizzo's route to that ball, not particularly aggressive. Mookie isn't that slow. He's pretty darn fast. Somebody got... Both of them, I think, are a little complicit there.
You're not wrong. I've been watching Anthony Rizzo play baseball for quite some time.
True.
Rarely does he take it to the bag himself.
Really? He's a
flipping
guy?
Right, and that's... You said, the way he fields it, he doesn't field it as if he's going to take it to the bag himself.
No.
He is almost always I'm going to field it and flip it. Garrett Cole knows that. They've been playing together for enough time.
That's right.
That, like, you got to know what the tendencies of your teammates are. And, like, yeah, as a pitcher, if you got a first baseman who is not super likely to take it to the bag himself, you better bust your butt to get over there.
Yeah, well, and was it the inning after that where... No, maybe 2 innings after that where Blake Trinan had one of those type of plays, and he hustled. He hustled to one.
No, I mean, we had our outdoor scrimmage yesterday.
Yeah.
We missed a lot of cuts and relays.
We did.
Didn't miss any PFPs, though.
That's true. That's true.
The kids learned from Garrett Cole. They saw that. They were like, oh, that's...
Yeah.
That one blunder is worth dozens of hours of PFP practice for coaches.
100%,
yeah.
Dude. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of dudes who are just like, all right.
I want to say it was I almost said Ronnie Two Shoes, but I want to say Rob posted on Twitter right afterwards that like PFPs next spring are going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah. I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he
was
did.
like, I enjoy that comment. We're going to have complete buy-in for PFPs next year.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, we were already up 3-1, so like whatever. But
3-1. If they won, you're going back to LA.
Yeah.
Rodon in Game 6 is dubious at best.
Yeah,
so like.
Okay.
I don't know how much it actually changes, but like momentum is a real thing.
Yep, it is. It absolutely is, especially in the game of baseball. And man, I think before that inning went down, I was just like, all right, well, I've got to talk myself into what that game looks like in LA. Fortunately, we didn't get there. I got nothing else. You got anything else?
I got nothing else.
All right. So axbat.com, code DO20, Dodgers Los Angeles, get you 20% off. You should fast forward to the beginning of this episode to get the code for Ryan Freeman's on the website design and marketing
Strider
stuff. Strider 4DL. Yeah, Strider, the number 4DL.com. Thank you.
And one more push for the GoFundMe that you posted.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me. Yeah,
please.
Just find me on Twitter or X, if that's what I have to begrudgingly call it, at Deven Morgan, and you can find the link to the GoFundMe there. Thank you for everybody that's already supported. If you haven't, look, man, I sometimes I've gotten those GoFundMe things. It's like I just didn't have a bunch of money to give. It's like maybe I'm just not going to do that. I can assure you, man, if you just got a couple bucks, like a couple copies worth of support that you can give to this family, I know that it would go a long ways to helping them because you can't. You can't put the genie back in the bottle with stuff like this, but it is all about how we make sure that this family is supported over the next 3-5 years and the rest of their lives. And in so much as we have an opportunity to do that with the Academy and the Scholarship Fund, in so much as you have the opportunity to do that with the GoFundMe.
I think
whatever you can do.
Us, one of the bigger things is there's multiple siblings and we only have the oldest one.
Correct.
So as much like we can only do so much for the younger ones. Yeah. And that GoFundMe goes a really long way to help make the situation easier for them as well.
Yep. So if you could do that type of stuff, that would be great. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. I'm not going to be here next week because I have Youth Summit in Augusta, Georgia. I will see my friends Rob Haney, Ryan Brownlee, Jordan Baltimore, the whole crew. We're going to get back together, David Klein. So I guess we'll figure out if we're going to do, we'll figure that out. Anyways, Jeremy and I will talk about that offline. We're not going to subject you guys to that conversation. Thank you as per usual for joining us. Thank you for supporting the pod on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or wherever you find it. Driveline Youth on all the socials. If you want to figure out like some of the stuff that we're doing, see video of Noah's throw. We got a whole bunch of stuff up there. That's all I got. I am Deven. He is Jeremy. We're down by law. Catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.